And it's a line drive to
Key lime margarita?
right in the gap.
Yeah.
All the way to the
What are you
wall.
doing?
Finally, the Reds
Just watch.
Whoa.
Hi.
Go for it.
Thanks.
What about me?
Got you covered. Hey!
Whoa.
Hey!
Hey.
Hey.
Lefty O'Doul's drink mixes at these fine stores.
What are you doing? I'm getting the girl back.
With a live audience at the Gold Dust Lounge at Fisherman's Wharf. It's the Will and Willie Show, brought to you by Lefty O'Doul's Drink Mixes, your bartender in a bottle. I'm Paul Wells.
I'm Will Durst. And I'm Willie the Brown.
Willie the Brown, Willie the Bridge. We'll take it any way we can get it. Now, we recorded this show on Earth Day, and we
Earth
have
Day.
one of the co-founders
Brought to you by Dow Chemical.
of the
whom this
national
event
recognition of Earth
would
Day,
neither be
Pete
possible
McCloskey.
nor necessary.
He is, actually.
Yes, he is.
I mean,
It wasn't a
long
communist
before-
plot.
Long before people really understood the whole concept of the environment and why we should be concerned about tomorrow from a standpoint of all the things that we are exposed to, Pete McCloskey was way ahead of his time.
He and Gaylord Nelson.
Republicans.
Absolutely.
Well, not Nelson. Nelson was a Democrat.
Okay.
So
it was bipartisan.
Wisconsin. Yes, that was the whole idea.
It was bipartisan, and
That-
Gerald Ford was the one in
And you
44
notice
years
how-
ago said, let's do it.
Will knew that right off. You know why?
Yes. Why is that?
That's his neck of the woods.
Gaylord Nelson.
Yeah, from
That's
Wisconsin.
his
Yeah,
neck of the woods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 415 Media's Rich Lieberman, the controversial correspondent who blogs
Ooh,
and
controversy.
sends out things. And yeah, we'll delve into maybe some of that as well.
And you know, all those bloggers, those bloggers, they're kind of a mystery to me.
Well, it's citizen journalism.
Well, that's what you might call it, but in many cases, they don't even use their own name.
Some of them are anonymous, but
No,
Rich
quite.
puts his name right out there.
But, you know, columnists, I have people asking me, is it true?
And?
Are you kidding me? I say, I'm a columnist.
You're a columnist.
That's what I said.
right.
I said, I'm a columnist. I'm like a blogger. What do you mean, is it true?
Now, when
It's
do you
my opinion.
when do you write that column?
Well, I start on Monday, thinking through, dropping in a line here and a line there, and by Thursday, I have more than they would dare print.
Ah.
And then by Friday, they are arguing with me about what should be printed.
So that's your hard
And-
deadline is
yeah,
Friday?
Yeah, and by Friday afternoon, I still have a gig
So far.
because I give in
So, oh, do you? Yeah.
on many occasions, but
What-
not on all.
Have you been censored on anything?
Well, not censored. You're argued with. You know, like for an example, last week when I wrote that Leland, he was a petty crook. I mean, well, you know, the Chronicle is making him out to be Al Capone. I said, what are you talking about? Al Capone had talent. Al Capone had skill. Al Capone had followers. Leland's, you know, he's the guy that steals an apple when the guy who owns a fruit stand isn't looking.
Yeah.
And that's it. They printed it, finally.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they finally printed
so,
it.
So you
I
argued with
won
them
that
back and
battle.
forth on that?
Oh, yeah, I won that battle.
Well, it is a column. I mean, you know, it is, you know, Willie Brown's opinions do not reflect the management's idea of what's actually going
Well,
on.
it's interesting. They've stopped saying that, you know.
They don't have that disclaimer?
No, they don't have that disclaimer anymore, which really places an incredible burden on me because now all of a sudden I'm associated with what they write. Which is different.
Yeah.
And you know, you read Insight on Sunday. There's some great articles in Insight. I'd like to be associated with what Robert Rice says. You ever read his stuff?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
man, he is absolutely fabulous. You know, I wish I could write like Robert Rice. But I got a great discovery today. I had a 13-year-old daughter, and she wrote a letter to a judge. Didn't even check with her mother or her father about some friend of hers who was being prosecuted, and she says, I want to testify. And I know you think a 13-year-old shouldn't want to testify, but I'm mature enough to answer any questions that any adult may put to me.
Wow.
Oh, man,
What'd the
that
judge
shocked
say?
me. Yeah, so I went and said, hey, kid, who wrote this letter? He said, I wrote the letter. What do you mean, who wrote the letter?
What's the case? What's
Well, It's a case involving a guy who is accused of beating up his wife.
Ooh. And your
guy's a
daughter
friend
wants
of hers.
Your
Yeah.
daughter wants to be the character witness for the guy who's beating up his wife. Oh Jesus!
No, allegedly.
Allegedly, yes, alleged. Where all the wife beaters are alleged wife
Well,
beaters.
speaking of someone
Unless they wear
beating
that
on
t-shirt.
someone less powerful, why don't we go to the Ukraine?
Whoa,
What's going on there?
you are Captain Segway, aren't you?
Well, what's happening in
Am I bleeding?
I mean, it's not unusual for things to go on over there that are kind of strange and unusual. What's really unusual is Biden is there. Did you see that?
No.
Biden is over there. Vice President
the
Biden
Ukraine?
went to, he went to the Ukraine.
In Kiev, or is he on the eastern side?
I don't know where he is, but he was over there. He
think
went
he's
over
as
there
far
to
west
visit.
as possible,
He went over
yeah.
to pay a visit. Just as they were doing some funny things to each other. But this guy Putin is really relatively serious. I guess you don't ever stop being the KGB.
No. They have a name for ex-KGB agents. It's called dead. Yeah.
Ex-KGB. Well,
Yeah.
this guy's really, and he's deadly serious, and he
Do we
doesn't
care
take-
though? Do we really care?
Oh, I
is this
think-
a,
I
is this a
think we care.
domino thing going on?
Well,
you know?
but I think we care. Well, I think that there is an interest from some people in America, particularly at the leadership level, that everywhere there's any evidence of any violation of people's rights and things of that nature, that we should express ourselves. Maybe we shouldn't do anything, so to speak.
What can we do?
Well, you can say, hey, you're not going to buy any more vodka.
That's one of the sanctions.
That's a
yeah,
sanction.
that's it. No more Stolichnaya. We're gonna go straight to Polish vodka.
That's
We'll show you.
Oh, we're gonna have
As
to
a
empty
matter
the
of fact-
drink now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even think we're doing that anymore. I think the vodka is now made in San Jose or someplace. I mean, which San Jose vodka? Can you imagine? Drinking
Well,
San Jose
I
vodka?
drink San Francisco gin.
And San
Anchorstein's
Francisco
gin?
water, yeah.
Anchorstein's gin?
I
Oh
guess
my
you can make
God.
the stuff any place now. You don't really have to travel abroad
No.
anymore. But
What-
economic
what else
sanctions.
What else
economic
can we do?
sanctions.
Can we shut off his Netflix account?
I don't know if we want to do that or not. That might have adverse
Maybe a little
effects.
dangerous.
That might have it. He was maybe the biggest, one of the biggest users of House of Cards. It was those cats over there, and now they're into Scandal. They're into all the good stuff that's on TV and Breaking Bad and all the other stuff. So you got to be careful with that. That might adversely affect you.
A lot of people said that it was television that actually caused the fall of the Berlin Wall, because people in East Germany were starting to, get the West German broadcast signals, and they were seeing all the stuff that they couldn't have, and it was hard for the government to, and it might have been partly because of TV, and partly because we drove them broke. We drove Russia broke.
Well, you got to keep in mind, though, that I think that people who make consumer products now, and the most expensive consumer products, literally consider those rich Russians purely the object of where you go sell those things, whether they're the cars, whether they're the handbags, whether it's the jewelry.
London condos.
That's right. New York condos.
Yeah.
There's some condos in New York. $95 million condo is being purchased by the Russians on the top floor of a new building yet to be built. And so there is clearly a market for the products.
So we can put pressure on these rich people in Russia rather than the government itself.
Correct.
So we could
so that they in turn
Put pressure.
on the government, and it appears as if Putin may very well be in partnership with a number of those very rich people
I'm
in
shocked.
Russia.
Shocked.
Because some of that wealth came from a transfer of assets from what used to be the state to some individual, and in some cases, there's been some persecution of some of those individuals who received it.
Who weren't playing ball.
That's right. The guys who didn't play ball, who decided for some independence. So there is some interaction by us. And then, of course, some parts of Europe rely upon Russia for some aspect of their energy source.
Natural
That's where they
gas.
get that is
Right.
correct. They get their natural gas from there, and they don't want to be totally beholden to the Middle East, and so it's not as clear cut as it was, let's say, in Iraq or in, not even as clear cut as it should have been in Syria for the USA when Syria was doing the things that they were doing, when that government was doing the thing. So I don't think we're going to go over to the Ukraine and say, you know, we're coming with a...
We're backing you up. Here's some guns. We'll probably just give them money and you buy the guns on your own.
I think they already have the guns. I don't think either side in the Ukraine is unarmed. I think it appears that everybody is armed over there.
But have you noticed the weird thing about these shadow guys who are wearing the masks and they're pro-Russian forces and they're taking over the Ukraine public buildings and they're all wearing masks and you can't, but they all have uniforms without any insignia on it. Although the New York Times was able to find a couple of patches that were reminiscent of Russian special forces.
Well, and some people say some of those guys are from New York. They were over there working.
Oh, yeah?
And they're on their way back to New York when it's over. And they don't want anybody to know who they really are. So I can
Working
understand.
for Bloomberg? They're Bloomberg's old guys, right?
Bloomberg.
Because they didn't have a job. You know, they got aced out.
You mean
with
the
Blasio.
change in the leadership in New
Yeah,
York?
I hate it when regimes
with
fall,
Blasio,
man.
Yeah, taking over. I mean, it was that way here. You know, the guys that worked for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they went to Uganda.
oh, they
and,
started
you
knocking
know.
on my door. Can we eat? I don't know you. I mean,
Here on the Will and Willie Show, we should point out that there's a historical
Precedent.
conflict in the Ukraine, and Ukraine was on the side of Nazi Germany. At least part of that is carrying over to this, and there is some aggressions reportedly that Jews are being targeted in the
And
Ukraine
blamed.
right now, and blamed for
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, which is what stupid people do.
well, it's kind of interesting as the acceleration of activity in the Ukraine itself and about the Ukraine is taking place. There's been a dampening of the incredible attention that was being given to gays and lesbians in Russia. You recall that 6 months ago, there was an incredible amount of attention, and there were protests after protests, and all of the kinds of things that in America are almost natural were considered high crimes in Russia. You could not, you just couldn't
You
survive.
couldn't proselytize
No, not
for
at all.
gay freedom.
Not at all. And so Russia is still, under the current leadership and under the government, a long way from being an acceptable partner in the family, in the nations who are part of the family of the world.
Well, also, I mean, the government over there, Putin said that he went over to protect the rights of Russian-minded citizens and historically Russian people. But, you know, Putin worried about other people's rights. Ask Pussy Riot how he feels about other people's rights.
You know what he really was doing, though, is that he needed access to the Black Sea.
Yeah.
That's what that was all about.
A warm water port.
That is exactly right.
They've
He
always
needed
wanted
the
a warm water
port, and being the practical person that he is, he stepped forward and he grabbed that, literally grabbed that first.
He annexed Sudetenland. I mean
Overnight.
Crimea. I mean Crimea. I always get those two mixed up. Yeah.
Crimea, yeah.
Yeah.
While Obama draws lines in the sand. We're going to segue to our next segment. As
That's
a
the
matter
great
of
thing
fact.
about drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, because it kind of erases itself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
We're going to have Rich
One
Lieberman
Sirocco.
from 415 Media, and there's
Oh, he's going to join us?
He's
Is
going
he
to
going to talk
join
about
us,
the Ukraine too?
maybe, and some other things, and give us the inside scoop on some local Bay Area type things that are going on. And we will also have Pete McCloskey, who's not just a former congressman, but a Korean war hero, led the last Marines bayonet charge of all time, and then became the anti-war candidate in 1972, opposing the Vietnam War and Nixon. And that's how a lot of people became Republicans in the Mid-Peninsula to vote for him in the Republican primary so they could remain as our
I'd vote for him
congressman.
today.
And he was a co-founder of Earth Day, and we'll get to more about that and talk to Pete and Rich. And I want to thank our friends from My Source TV, and happy birthday to Laura Rose. It's actually 1 year since we did our first show here.
27, 28? Yeah. 29, I was close. And that's the first segment of the Will and Willie Show.
Exactly.
in front of a live studio audience without the studio at the Gold Dust Lounge.
And we'll be right back from the Gold Dust Lounge after a brief pause.